Okay. Um, let's go. Just start this quickly. Realizing your dreams, sixth step to choosing the right franchise. Let me tell you about myself. What I My experience is I my background is I got a electrical engineering degree, an MBA, and I'm a certified financial planner. I have 26 years of self employment. Sometimes that was good, sometimes it was not, but I've been on my own for a long time, so I don't know if I know how to work for somebody anymore. And the I was the owner of 8 Cold Stone Creamery franchises for 15 years, and I'm sure most people have heard of Cold Stone. And by the way, if you guys have a question, since we don't know if the chat box is, first put in chat box, and then if you don't get an answer, you can raise your hand. There's a little button that shows you a hand going up, and if I see that, I won't catch it right away, but I'll go back and forth between two screens. Then I'll enable you to ask the question directly. Okay, since we don't know why the chat box information is not coming through. So, since 1997, I was one of the first franchise owners of Cold Stone Creamery. Um, and when you have 8 Cold Stones and they were at their peak in the old days, you had up to 150 employees in the summer. So, um, so there's when you own a franchise or any business, and it's a retail where you have a fixed location, it's kind of interesting the learning that you have to go on through the process, because first you're running one business, hiring employees, worrying about all the finances, the state rules and so forth, and the federal rules that you have to abide by. And then as you start getting two or three, then you got to start getting store managers. And then when you get more than that, your accounting gets kind of astronomical. So now you got to get bookkeepers. And then when you got 4 or 5 stores, like I had up to 8, then you got to get a regional manager. And after a while, you're just managing managers, and you're not even the the reason you got into the business, because you thought ice cream was really exciting and people were lining up out the door, like they used to say when you have a faddish franchise. Um, is the thing is what happens is you get away from that. You don't even get near the product anymore because of the fact you're not making the product anymore. You're just managing managers. But that's good if they stay profitable. But then when you have a 4 year recession, that really kind of takes a lot of the last recession was still kind of in that we went through. It took a lot of money out of retail, and I don't have to only talk about an ice cream store. All the you know restaurateurs are talking about that and so forth also. So, um, but I'm just trying to tell you what my experience is. 15 years in it, and it was. What's important about that is my franchise was a faddish franchise, and there's a lot of them, and a lot of people get excited by faddish franchises. But that's the consulting I want to do, and that's what we're going to talk about: how you balance, make sure you got the right one. Um, this is a book I wrote recently, last year, buying a franchise: 24 steps to beware of before signing. Um, this is this is my 15 years of experience, and hopefully people who read this book can learn some of the pitfalls before they run into them. Or what I'm really trying to get you to do is the investigation process that I would like you to do prior to buying a franchise. Some more of my experience: I'm an author, obviously a public speaker, um, finance professor at University of Phoenix and Colorado Technical University. So I teach financial planning and financial courses at both those universities. Online, that's the Colorado Technical. I don't go to Colorado, obviously, all the time. So um, I live in San Diego. Obviously, this is a New Jersey accent, but I left there 26 years ago. Uh, and from obviously Hoboken, New Jersey, Frank Sinatra, the other second famous Frank. But anyway, that's where I'm from. Okay, let's do a poll. You know, when I do a webinar, what I really want to do on a webinar is I want to make sure, even if people, whatever the product is or the service or the consultancy or the move that you would like somebody to make at the end of the uh, PowerPoint or sales process, I want people, if they're not interested in going any further, to get knowledge out of this. So I like to ask a poll at the beginning so we can see, and the poll is going to be how strong is your franchise knowledge. So let me launch this poll, and I hope this goes better than the chat room stuff. So let me see. Okay, everybody should see that poll. Can you please click it and then submit the answers? And then what I like to see is where we are, and if we learn something in the webinar, at the end we'll have the similar poll and see if things change. Okay. Wow, I have some really smart people here. I have a good response. I'll share the poll once we get them all in. It says 75% of the people voted, so we have a couple more. Okay, we have just a couple more we need to vote, so. All right, everybody, I'm going to count to 10, and then I'm going to submit the poll, close the poll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. All right, so let's share the results. Okay, I told you this was a smart group. I have a great wealth of knowledge on franchising, 67%. I have no franchising knowledge, 33%. And I have a small amount of knowledge, 0%. So obviously everybody, the question might not be worded exactly right. A small amount of knowledge, everybody knows in the United States about McDonald's, so there's no way anybody's going to have any small amount of knowledge. So, except today, a funny story, I got a haircut, and I have one person on the line, Matt Reese, I was noticing. He probably would chuckle at this, but I have a barbershop that I told Matt that I really like now, very close to my house. So I walked over there today to get a haircut, and he's Iraqi, Chaldeans though. And what happened was, with selling franchises, I like to network to every group. Iranians, Iraqis, Italians, Irish. You have a lot of South Africans in San Diego and so forth. So I thought I'd talk to him about, after we chit chat about the war scene in the Middle East for most of the haircut. I asked, and he's been here for 7 years. So I asked him, what do you think about franchising, to kind of like sneak into, because they have a barber shop, his uncles have, they have other stores. They own almost that strip mall, I think. So there's a big community of business people. And I said, so what happened with, do you have any franchises? Anybody in your family like franchises? Just so to see if I can plant the seed. And he goes, what's a franchise? And I didn't want to say McDonald's because it's too much of a platitude. So I mentioned to him, well, how about, Jack in the Box? Because that's pretty big. He said, and he had a puzzled look on his face. And then I went on to Cold Stone, which was big. No. Subway, Wimpy's. Then I said the big word, McDonald's. And he still was confused. So I guess I met somebody who hasn't heard of franchising. So it's there's one of them. Okay, so let's move on. We had the poll. I wrote down those numbers, and it looks like it's a smart group with 67% having a lot of knowledge. We'll see how that changes at the end. Okay, now I want to give away a quick prize. Okay, just since we're starting talking about franchising. Okay, whoever, now this is going to be a tough problem to answer this if that chat room's not working. So since you can see mine, I'm going to put my email address in here, and you guys can answer, and at the end I can see who got it by your email address. So okay, there's my email address, and the question is, what was the first recorded stateside franchise? Okay. You have my email address in there. You can email it to me because you should be able to chat it back. If you guys can try it and it works later, great. But I don't know why the chat's not coming in. So, so email it to me and we'll look at it at the end. Okay. And I also have a second question. So what the prize is going to be is a free book, because my service in the end, you'll see, is a complimentary service. So I can't give you free twice. So I'm going to give you a book. The second question is, what did, and in this town, everybody must know this, what did Ray Kroc do before buying out the McDonald brothers? And I'm sure you know the story that he didn't start McDonald's, but he bought them out and he made it what it is. So, okay. So you got the questions. You can answer that throughout the thing if you want. Send it to my email. Okay. And then all of a sudden they talk about sometimes there's some history franchising developed over time as an efficient way to do business, and there were versions of franchising employed in Europe centuries ago. The origin of the word franchise goes back to Anglican French, meaning freedom, liberty, to free, and earlier from the old French franc, for free. In the Middle Ages, the local tilled landowner owner would grant rights to peasants or serfs, probably for consideration to hunt or go to fairs to sell products. When the rights came rules, and these rules became part of the European common law then. So that's really where the franchising term goes in. I'm not going to go on and say which we consider the oldest one and what Ray Kroc did. There's a couple other older ones. So there's one basic answer that everybody usually talks about, but I'll accept several of them. And what Ray Kroc really did, by the way, is not only, obviously franchising. There was franchise companies prior to that with Coca-Cola and General Motors and so forth. But Ray Kroc and McDonald's started really the business format of franchising. And if you look at some books, even if you don't want to go into a franchise and you want to have a business, some of the things that came from McDonald's is that the true product of the business is the business itself. So we all make a mistake of working whatever, like if we made ice cream or we made cakes in our life or whatever we did, or made bread, we start working on that and the business doesn't grow. And even though we were an entrepreneur, we don't grow our market and we don't do our PR correctly because we're in the business, working in the business. And franchising and the Ray Kroc model is basically, working on the business. So let's move on And okay, finding career satisfaction. The road to happiness lies in two simple principles. Find what it is of interest you, and then you can do it well. When you find it, put your whole soul into it. Every bit of energy and ambition and natural ability you have from Rockefeller. Uh, the three employment choices we all have is that we can stay the course with the job, go it alone with entrepreneurship, or we can do a partnership with successful franchising. Um, Advantages of a job. We're going to go through all the advantages and disadvantages. You get a paycheck, benefits, and security. Um, in the days, of course, of everybody also having defined benefit plans, that was the best part. But, that's kind of gone, unless if you're in the public sector, but in the private sector, most of those defined benefits are gone now. So definitely a lot to be spoken for a job because of those 3 points. Uh, Challenges of a job: limited earnings potential, limited freedom, diminishing benefits. As times go on and a business, even if they have a lot of old time successful workers, very experienced workers, will sometimes, offer them a buyout package, or maybe a layoff will come due to the economy, and then they'll be hiring on the back end less experienced, less expensive workers. So, that's some of the challenges long term. I had a friend that once told me when I was working overseas, I lived overseas for 7 years, and we thought that was the greatest time in the 80s being an expat and uh, making good tax-free money, and we really enjoyed it. And I said, this is the greatest. And then we tried to, extrapolate where our salary would go with 15% raises. Because remember, in the 70s and 80s, when we came out in 78, 79, when the economy had 15% mortgage rates and a prime of like 15, that's the kind of raises they were given if you were average. So, and we said, well, we'll be making hundreds of thousands down the road and all these benefits. And he was much older than me. I was only about 30 and he was in his 50s. And he said, nothing goes on forever. Everything changes. So that's what kind of happens with a job and economies and so forth. So challenges of a job also is lack of security, answer to a boss, wealth for company, not for you. Uh, Unless you're at a startup firm, and there's a lot of people. I have to say some people made very well in the Silicon Valleys of the world and so forth, but they're not always easy to find. Okay, advantage of entrepreneurship. By the way, just to remind people that if they see my email in the chat box and there's 2 questions: what was the first recorded stateside franchise, and what did Ray Kroc do before buying out the McDonald's brothers? We'll give a free book at the end if you email me. And the reason we're not having you type it in, somehow the chat box isn't working from you to me, but when I'm chatting to you, it seems to be working. Okay, advantages of entrepreneurship. Grow your own idea. Be your own boss. Have total control. Does anybody... if anybody has a question, remember, since the chat box isn't working both ways, please put your hand up. And you should have a button that shows a hand. So then I can enable your mic and you can talk, okay? So, all right. So let's move on. The advantages of entrepreneurship. The challenges now of entrepreneurship. Come up with the idea. Now develop and refine the plan for that idea. And you need additional skills and talent, which you have to hire to implement that. Challenges of entrepreneurship, again, lack of direction, high failure rate, unpredictable future. And why is it the high failure rate from what we talked before, where people don't design a system first? Um, you can talk to a lot of people about who want to start a business, and they say, this is a great idea, why don't you start it? They always tell you to start it instead of them starting it. And the problem is, if you have a great service you can provide, or you have a great product that you made, uh, and you stay inside the business and you do most of the work, well, that's going to get, the thing that you loved is going to become really a pain, because you got to stay open a lot of hours. You got to do a lot of things in business you didn't do before when you were just working on that product. And then what happens is you start losing an interest in it, and you're not growing the business. So you got to have a system, that your business is running for a system, a marketing system, and you're working on that business instead of in it. So, okay, the advantages of franchising. Experience of the franchisor, the operating system they put in place, and the training and support. Now, the experience of the franchisor is really important too, and that's kind of what I do with candidates. Is we go through what experience they first personally have, and you have 3,500 franchisors. Like, how do you pick through that maze? So we try to pick through that maze and get down to a couple franchisors that meet the requirements of what they want from a lifestyle, from a work point of view, meaning hours point of view, how many employees they want. Uh, do they want an absentee model, a semi absentee model, or even kind of an executive model where you work really hard at the beginning, train the managers, and then deal with the managers? So, uh, but when you say the advantages of franchise, experience of the franchisor, that's what you have to check out. That's what my book's about too. You have to spend the time to check out the franchisors you get to. You can never go through 3,000 franchises. So that's why you want to go through a franchise consultant to narrow it down to a range that you can work with. And then you want to check that, and you validate a franchise by, once you deal with a couple franchisors, you get access to their franchisees in the system. And now you could talk to the people who are in that system and find out, are they making the profit that they were told? Are they making close to the profit that they told? Are they getting the support, the training and support? Is this operating system really foolproof and easy to follow? So we have these 3 bullet points that franchising, particulars that really make a franchisor the best to work with, but we got to pick the right franchisor. And the only way you're going to know that are the people that are the franchisees. Now, you can go, I've been there when I was at the beginning of Cold Stone, they would always direct people to myself. And what happens is that if people would call me during the day, and after a while, it's fun at the beginning, but after you get 200 calls over the first couple of years, since I was the new franchisee, one of the newest ones and the earliest ones, if they don't ask the tough questions, you don't volunteer them. So if they'll say, how's Cold Stone? You go, it's great. How's your employees? Oh, they have a lot of fun. Everybody, if you don't know somebody, is going to give you pat answers if you don't give them the tough questions. So also, as a franchise consultant, I work with my candidates to make sure we have a list of questions that they really want to know. And any question they ask me to ask the franchisees are not too simple. Every question gets on the list. Plus, I add a bunch they're probably going to forget, because you got to ask targeted questions so you can get the franchisees to tell you the answers you need to know before you make a decision. Okay, advantage of franchising, continuing. Group buying power, research and development, peer groups. Excuse me, I have a drink here. From my experiences, I like to work with people on the group buying power. I want that question to be asked. And one of the questions I like a franchisee to ask a franchisor, is there any rebates that the franchisor takes back? because of the fact that affects the franchisee's cost. Because whenever a franchise system gets big, a lot of the vendors and suppliers like to buy the business of the franchisor by offering rebates back to the franchisor. You, as the franchisee, really don't want that to happen. Or if you see it, you want to be able to control those extra funds coming back. You want them to come back as rebates to the franchisees so your cost of goods go down, or you want to be able to vote on putting them into a marketing fund. See, that's where from my experience, I will actually help people when they're looking and ask the tough questions that most people buying a franchise will never ask about the group buying power. That's something you have to know, and you have to ask the tough questions about any rebates coming back, and could I, as a franchisee, look at that and vote on where those funds go. Okay, research and development. What's going back into this product? Every product, no matter what it is, has to keep up with the competition. How is that being funded? Where's that money coming from? How much is going in? So you don't want a franchise that you don't, if you can find out, don't forget when you sign a franchise disclosure document, in there is the audited statements, maybe a year or two old. But you want to find in those statements how many dollars are going to research and development, where they're coming from. And you also want to find out that there is no way that the franchisor is living off just the franchise fee. You want him to live off the franchise fee and the royalties, because you want him on the same side of the table as you. You want him to help grow your royalties, because that royalty stream, the 6% or the 4% or the 10%, whatever his gross royalty is off your gross sales, you want him to be in the same business as you. If he's living off churning franchises and just living off the franchise fee, that's not going to be a successful franchise down the road. So these are the things you have to get out of the finances too. Another reason you need a consultant, because that's a lot of front end work. Peer groups. You have, I can tell you specific my information from Cold Stone. We had up to 1,400 franchisees at one time, and they actually at one time had about 20 co-ops across the country. Then somehow they made it into 100 co-ops, which I think was kind of crazy, but it got too diluted. But we would have regional co-ops. So, and what's good about that is then they're taking a certain amount of your gross sales for marketing, certain amount of it's going for national, and certain amount of it is staying in your local market. And that's what your co-ops meet once a month or once a quarter to vote where your co-op funds for marketing are going. And you want to be able to have the trail of marketing, not have a franchisor that doesn't show you the marketing fund. Another thing that has to be seen, and you want to know if there's co-ops, and you want to know if in your DMA, right, or your marketing area, if you have control over those marketing funds, so it's really productive to you. Okay, more advantages. Co-op. Okay, we just talked about the co-op advertising. No prior experience necessary. Sometimes they actually say it's better to have no prior experience because you fight the franchisor. Excuse me. Remember, one of the decisions of being a franchisee is that you have to live by a franchisor, okay? So you have to follow the formula. You want the formula, you bought the formula, follow the formula. Like McDonald's once said, the best franchisees lived in the Midwest, because everybody was usually fighting them on both coasts, okay? Because people, I guess, on the West Coast and the East Coast seem to be a little more questioning, more entrepreneurial, or whatever it is. But McDonald's had the best loyal and people who followed the system out of the Midwest. So no prior experience sometimes is good, because you're going to follow the formula. Brand name. Most important thing is the branding. If you read in my book, one of the things I fought about is that after Cold Stone was bought by a company called Kahala, they actually stopped wearing the brand. That was really the super beef I had with Cold Stone after the merger, was that I was public about, was that they stopped wearing the brand. The brand manager, the president, or CEO in the old days would always, everybody in the office would be dressed right, business casual, and they would always have a shirt on with a brand on it. And, every meeting they had, everybody was dressed with their brand on their chest. That's how they thought. Now you go in and there's nobody wearing the brand. And they said because the consolidator bought it and it's got 14 brands under one roof, one is not more important than the other. That's not the answer I want to hear. I want my franchisor to live that brand and to always talk about it and to make sure it gets in the news via PR or paid marketing so people start knowing that brand. I've had problems. You can read my book and so forth in relation to, sometimes some arguments with the franchisor and so forth. But I've never walked around and had anybody who's, if they see me in a Cold Stone shirt, not say I love Cold Stone. Not once did somebody talk bad about it because the brand was solid, and that's what you need on a franchise. So challenges of franchise, working within the system, we covered that. Potential risk, working with the franchisor. Yeah, you have a risk. There's always risk in every business. Nothing is perfect. Franchising gets you the brand recognition from New York to California when you get big enough, and it also, the potential risk though is that your franchisor, you have to make sure that he keeps everybody to the formula and you got to make sure that he doesn't overpopulate your area. So that's why you go in and in the franchise agreement, you definitely look for a protected area. If you don't have a protected area of your franchisor, please run. Don't only walk, run, so to speak, because your protected area, the brand is powerful, but people forget about you. The brand becomes so powerful, wherever they can get it, they go the fastest, the closest to their house, the closest to their work, wherever they want it. So they don't remember your business. So make sure your territory is stated in the franchise agreement and is protected. And also, from my experience, make sure you know how long it's protected. Is it only the 10 years of the first franchise agreement and it goes away on the second franchise agreement? When you buy a second location, does the new franchise agreement override the other? These are things you need a franchise consultant for. A lot of questions that you don't see on the front end. False expectations, managing the business and franchise fees. Okay. Look at the franchise fee. Don't go by just a nominal number that, 5% is less than 6%. I mean, would you want a Subway at 6% or would you want Joe's Sub Shack at 4%? You got to make a value judgment on the branding and the exposure and how people know something by the franchise fee. And it's got to make sense because you got to realize between marketing and franchise fee, you're losing 10% off the gross sales right off the top. So it's got to be a powerful brand that it's going to bring in sales that you can never bring in with your own business, that you can live with losing that money off the top because of the national marketing and the branding and the people showing up because of it. Is there any questions? I wish the chat box was working. That's one of my questions, but let me see. I don't see a hand raised. Oh, okay. There's a question mark next to the person. I don't know if that means a hand was raised or not. I'm just going to go through. Dave, do you have any questions? Ed? I was enabling a couple people because they had question marks next to them. Okay, I muted you again. All right, can somebody put up their hand if they have no problem hearing me? Well, I guess you do because you're still there, but okay. Jenna, you put up your hand. Great. That works. Let me see. Jenna, I unmuted you if you have a question.
I have a question about territories. And
Okay, Jenna, great. Go
if
ahead.
there's okay, so if you are looking at a franchise and there is a territory listed, but it seems somewhat vague, would you recommend walking away from the franchise if you don't agree with it, or is it negotiable?
Um, the power of franchising from a franchisor's point of view, and their lawyers, lawyers who usually help them put together their documents, they would tell them, please don't make any part of a franchise agreement within reason negotiable because it gets out of hand. So most franchisors, after they get to a certain critical mass and start getting bigger, they never want to negotiate. So, and if you say it's kind of not solid, I'll ask you an example in a second. I'll give you the examples that I had from Coldstone. They started out with a solid 3 mile circle, and you can just take a protractor and draw it on a map, and that was the 3 miles, and they stood by it. Then, but what they had clauses in there you got to watch out for. They had a clause in their franchise disclosure document that says any new one comes out, it overrides the original one. So in my case, where I was a loyal franchisee and bought 8 franchises, every time I was buying another one, I was hurting myself because it was overriding my first. And by the time I got to the 8 franchise, they had no territory, no circle. So now I had no control. So what you need to look at is that they have a defined area by geography, or if they give it to you by population and say by 50,000 population circle, you have to say, is that population circle mean every kid also, or does it mean people who make 50,000 from a demographics point of view? You just have to dig deeper. And if it is mushy, yeah, I would leave.
Thank you.
Okay, Jenna. Anybody else have their hand up? I just muted Jenna again, but Jenna, you can put your hand down so when you have another question, I can look at it then. So that works. Anybody have a question? Just put your hand up. It works like a champ. Okay. So let's go down to the next one. How important is franchising? Franchising businesses generate 1.53 trillion in economic activity. Franchise businesses account for over 11% of US payrolls. Franchise businesses provide 13.7% of the private sector employment. Now, if you see, I don't know if you can see the fine print, but if you see on the bottom, that's 2001 study of economic impact of franchise businesses, Price Waterhouse. But excuse me, I went to update this on some websites, and it was kind of the same, not much different. So I didn't update it. But the thing is, you also got to watch when you get franchising data. Some of the things I don't believe in. If you go to the IFA website, which is the standard everybody quotes in most articles you see in newspapers and magazines and entrepreneur magazines, International Franchise Association. It is definitely a good organization. It's been around forever. It's expensive to join and be in. It's great for franchisors and vendors. But I tell you, to be honest, it's a heavy it's a heavy lobbying source for the franchisors, not for the franchisees. So some of its numbers in there that I've read a lot of articles on, I dispute and I disagree with, and I read a lot of people's books on it too. So I really didn't update this. One fact that you can remember, and I think everybody can see it if they track it, almost 50 cents of every dollar you spend every day goes to a franchise. If you go to CVS or you go to a small Cold Stone or a Menchie's yogurt or whatever the brand, you are spending probably 50 cents of every dollar every day, supercuts on your haircut, whatever, on a franchise product. That's what's really important. So they are important. They're not going away, and they always seem to be growing. But watch some of the statistics. You'll see what I don't like the IFA says a lot of times, and they quote them in the Wall Street Journal and all. That's the International Franchise Association. They'll say 95% of the businesses that are franchisable don't fail, where 50% of the non-franchise businesses fail. And I would not say that because franchisors have a way of covering it. And that's something you got to ask when you look at the franchise disclosure document. you have to ask them, okay, I want to know when you give me the list of franchisees, that has to be in the FDD, the list of franchisees. Uh, Tell me how many of them are the original franchisees, how many of them changed, or how many company stores did you sell at a low price to a new franchisee? Franchisors will keep their failure rate down by, if a person's going out of business, they'll hand that off to another successful franchisee who has a lot of stores, maybe at a very low ball price, or they'll keep that in their inventory as a company store and then sell it back to some other franchisee. So they'll tell you the store never closes. Even the huge McDonald's does that, because I personally met a friend who's a faculty member at University of Phoenix with myself. I met him at a faculty meeting. He told me that prior to this, he was a McDonald's owner in Texas. I says, a McDonald's owner that actually gave up that to do adjunct teaching. Obviously, you can't live off adjunct teaching, but he had another job now. Why would you give up your McDonald's? And he said, because he was losing money, and McDonald's came in and gave it to another guy who had 13 stores in Texas. So you never know when McDonald's closed because they won't let them close. So I don't know. That was kind of a shock to me. So be careful on to get the real failure rate from your franchisor by asking them, are these the original owners? Did they swap stores? Did you sell it out of bull? Ask the tough questions. That's why you go to Franchise Consultant. I'll tell you which ones to ask. Okay. Why franchising is growing? Uncertainty of corporate America, uncertainty in the stock market, quick start, accelerated learning. Definitely, I don't want to say uncertainty in corporate America. I don't want to give a negative on the economy. Has been horrible for the last 4 or 5 years, worse than my life. But I don't want to be negative on it because things come back. Things go in peaks and valleys. But people do get laid off a lot more often, it seems, at least in the last 4 years. So, or they retire early because they're tired of the layoffs. So franchising works perfectly in that. A person who has the skills, doesn't want to retire real early, or has a good retirement, likes to retire early but doesn't want to sit on the couch, wants to do something. Or let's talk about the other thing. Even if your job is successful, your net worth is growing, but your investments are terrible because, you can get a 5-year CD and get 1%, or you can get a fraction of a percent, on a 3-month CD. Bonds paying 1-2%. Nothing's growing. So a franchise is a great investment in this environment. If you pick the right one and you work it and you're smart about it, you can get probably a better return than today's interest rates in this artificially low interest rate environment. So look at it to replace a job, for early retirements, for also investment things. Plus, maybe there's a business you always wanted to be in, and you're definitely going to get accelerated learning if you take the right one. Why franchise is growing again? Risk reduction strategy, creation of an asset. That's a perfect situation. That's the only thing sometimes you're missing in a job. If you had a great defined benefit plan in the old days, that basically was an asset, because to give somebody $50,000 a year for their life takes many millions. So there's that asset. Those don't exist that much anymore. In fact, very little in the private sector, if any. And you don't have to then, you're working your company, if you're working it correctly, you probably don't have to worry about it going under. And not always the relative ease of resale, depending on the price and the economy. But you're building an asset. You're not only working for an income that might have replaced your job income, you now are working on something that is saleable. When you're working for a company with a good salary, you can't sell that company. Very few people are the equity owners of the big companies. So those are some of the big pluses, excuse me. Okay. How big is franchising? Over 3,000 different franchise opportunities, over 565 franchise owners, because they own, obviously going to own multiple ones too, and over 75 different industries. So how do you pick from the 3,075 different industries? You go to somebody like myself who studies them in different areas, uh, and has several in each area, so the person can meet the requirements of the person. And you cut it down like 70% of the people, including myself, those are some of the mistakes I made that I want to, make sure that you don't make. 70% of the people think they start thinking of franchising as food, be it, substance food like a McDonald's hamburger or an ice cream or a yogurt, um, you know, uh, you know, or obviously Starbucks or Jamba Juice or Cinnabon, the big names you all know. But it's not all food. I mean, there's repair franchises now. Senior citizen franchises are used. There's hair salons. There's it goes on and on. I mean, there's IT. Now that people have businesses and they get tired of trying to keep up with doing the social media, networking their PCs to their smartphones to their laptops, no matter where they travel in the world, having all the social media all mixed in together, and having it really help your marketing force. You need an IT person. So they now have IT franchises that the small person can afford to hire, and he's a franchise. So, uh, why do companies franchise? Rapid expansion of minimum capital. Franchises have vested interest and brand name efficiencies. Okay, what about the rapid expansion of minimal capital? Um, I think the person who becomes the franchisor, it's the most exciting thing of franchising that exists. Where else could you get rapid expansion of a business with somebody else's capital? Just think from the franchisor's point of view. He actually starts a business, wants to build a brand, and the best way to build a brand is to have it across the country, if not the world. And he does it with other people's capital. Because if he had to keep going to the bank and borrowing the money and getting a bigger loan and a bigger loan, going from small financing to mezzanine financing to, a really big line of credit, it'll take him forever. So when you have somebody in New York that's all excited about an idea and they move to California and you let them franchise, now they're building it with their capital, and then their relatives open one in Texas, you're on your way. And then when a franchise has a solid base in the States, they'll take that name and go out to the rest of the world. Nowadays, what I'm seeing, uh, knowing a lot of franchisors like I do in this business now, they're actually almost simultaneously building the domestic product and international, because you got the Chinas and the Dubais and the United Emirates and people who are just going crazy over franchising this. You give them a new name, they want to franchise it, so they grow overseas as fast as they grow in the States. So I'm just gonna scan over here quickly. Any other questions yet? No, nobody's got their hand up. So, um, okay, choosing the right franchise. Job, financial security. You can do it for a job if you lost your job or you retired early, or you want it for financial security so you have an asset to sell at the end, or you keep your job and you have an absentee type franchise that you can use as an investment that you figured will grow faster than a 1% bond. Okay. An opportunity for personal growth. Some people like to feel that entrepreneurship, feel that they own a business and networking with the community, and they like that. And build a business with value. Like we said, you can sell for the asset value down the road. Okay. Finally, let's go into the 6 steps that we talked about. That, and if I can hold your attention, I'm going to run a quick poll because since we don't have the chat room, which I don't know why, so I'm going to see if I could run another poll here. Okay. All right. So let me just ask a question. This might be the way to do it. Just 1 second. Okay, so let me. This is not really a poll. It's just because I just want to make sure that if you have any questions that I answer them, because if you tell me there's a question, oh no, okay. Boy, that was fast. Oh, 13% voted. Okay. Just want to see if you guys are awake out there. And my first call tonight to go to meeting software. What was wrong with the chat box? That really limited it a little. But 25% voted. Okay. Okay. Well, you also know you can put your hand up. So okay. 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 No questions. I guess that was that. All right, so let's go on quickly. So let's go to the 6 steps, and I won't take as long maybe as on the other ones, but you can hold in with me because at the end we'll ask this question again if we're getting new knowledge. So, and we get new knowledge, and then we'll kind of have a quick, prize again. So, why do you want to own a franchise? This is what we do as a franchise consultant. We're trying to find out through a series of questions, and we'll spend almost 4 hours with a candidate to see what kind of, interest they have, what kind of income they need, what kind of franchises, how involved they want to be in the business, how many hours they want to work. And we need your motivation, number one. Like, what motivates you to go into a business or a franchise? Like, why do you want to own? These would be the first questions I would be asking you. Why do you want to own a franchise? Why now? How will your life be different? Well, I really just go through these in a hurry, and then you could raise your hand if you have a question, and I'll stop. So, because this is what we ask in a 4 hour interview over several phone calls. So, what are your financial parameters? Step two: how much money can you comfortably invest? Will you have investors or partners, and how much can you borrow? And do you want to borrow? It's important to know that. So, and what happens is, and a lot of people think that they have their money in 401ks and qualified plans and, IRAs and 401ks, and they can't touch that till they're older. But if they find themselves losing a job early, or they're losing interest in a job and want their own business, we work with companies that can have your 401k, I like the strategies, or your IRAs, buy a piece of your business. So you can maybe put 50% in from your outside of a qualified plan, and you can put in 50% from your 401k by doing the paperwork right, starting the corporation that your 401k buys half the shares in, and you on the outside buy half the shares. And when you have a profit at the end of the year, you split it 50-50. If you do that, IRS says it's okay. 50-50, the profit goes back to your 401k, which is obviously paying you in the long run, and 50% goes back to your out of the qualified plan. So we have ways to set that up too. So when we're saying we need to borrow money, your money is also available from your qualified plans by doing it the tax correct way. So step 2 continued. What are your financial parameters? How much money do you need to make? We need to see what income you want to replace or what income you need. How soon do you need to see that income? How long you want to wait? Or do you need a business that's turnkey right away? Financing options. Cash or stock. SBA loan, which usually you got to put down nowadays in this environment 25% to get an SBA loan. And then your franchise has to be on the SBA preferred list, but usually you have a better shot at a franchise. I could never get a loan till I was like 40 years old when I bought my first Cold Stone, and the Cold Stone only had 53 franchises because SBA likes franchises more than they do individual stores. I don't know why, but they do. Okay, because they like that branding again. Equipment loan. Sometimes you can lease equipment or get a loan just for the equipment with them having title to the equipment. The ESOP or the 401k, roll we were talking about. Home equity, partnership and investors, friends and family business loan. All the different ways you can get financing options. Determine earning potential. Talk to franchisees. Some franchisors will provide this. Extremely regulated. It's regulated for me to talk to you about it, but you can get the franchisor to talk to you about it. And it depends on how many years they're in business. Some of the older ones will always talk about it, and some of the newer ones might say, well, we don't have enough knowledge yet. So consider an exit strategy. How long do you want to own the business? Multi-unit or single unit, location versus territory franchises. So sometimes, like in retail, you always have a location because you got to pick your location, and it's got to be usually blessed by the franchisor, so he thinks you're picking a good location, and you get help from the franchisor, which is a good thing. And at the same time, some of the things like you're in a repair franchise or something, or even like a Molly Maids or something, repairing, cleaning houses or businesses, you have a territory. You have like half the county, quarter of the county, whatever you buy. So probably by population. Okay, your optimal timing, job search versus franchise investigations. When do you want your first unit to open? Is your timing flexible? These are the questions we're going to ask you. If you got a job search going when you're also trying to get in a franchise, which a lot of people do, I'm going to ask you the question: if a job comes up, are you going to be gone and you finish with the franchise and you're going to take the job? So you got to be honest, so we both know which way we're going to go. So, or you're really doing a job search, but you still want a franchise on the side with kind of an absentee model. And how quickly you want it to open, and then we're realistic about the franchisor you pick, how quickly you can turn it and open it. Something working out of your house is almost instantaneous with a territory. Something in a retail location that you got to build out and get plans for and permits and architects, that's going to take some time. Excuse me. Your ideal business characteristics. What comes to mind as you're thinking about owning a business? Where do you want your business to be located? Do you want retail, service, or direct sales model? And again, that's what I'm saying. In my portfolio, I have retail, I have service things, and direct sales where you have a brand product that's well known and you do a lot of the sales yourself to get it moving, but the brand sells almost itself, so to speak. So it's your choice, and that's what we pick through the interview process and the free consultant to get an area that works for you. Choosing a business, the executive model, managed through managers. This is kind of what you can do, keep your job and use this as an investment, or you can be maybe retired now and you don't want to work that many hours, but you want to have something that's on your mind related to business every day. And so that's the managing through managers or the executive model. Strategize for growth. Make them, your employees run the day-to-day operations and the managers, but you keep strategizing for the PR, the growth, the strategic planning. That's not going to be done by your employees. That's yours to do, and the big picture involvement in the community and so forth. And if you were doing B2C, now you're going to do B2B. You want to just increase it, do more catering, do more, outbound sales that you weren't doing before. Okay, choosing a business, owner operator model. These are the things I will, help you sort through and pick that meets your criteria, your motivation, and what you want to do in your life. Understand every aspect of your business. Know your employees and customers. Very hands-on, have an involved attitude, and believe me, that's really when you get the faddish retails and you want a restaurant or you want a yoga concept or an ice cream concept. They're very own operated retail, hands-on. So, and a lot of people like that because they know their customers are coming to. In an outbound sales model, even if you don't have a lot of employees, you got to go find the customers. In a retail, they know people are going to come over the threshold sooner or later. Choosing a business, service territory base, low investment, less inventory and overhead, fewer operating costs or hours, and local repeat customers because you got a certain territory. Once you build it, hopefully they're coming back because your service is great and your brand is great. So I'm still scanning the people here and see if we have any questions. And I appreciate everybody showing up today. Choosing a business, our retail location. What is retail besides more hours? It has higher investment in real estate, easier to finance because the banks like it because they, again, if it's a brand that they know and it's a franchise and they can touch and feel it, they can tie the equipment. They put why did I forget that? UCC, they put a lien essentially on your equipment. Uh, Manager runs 7 days a week, multi-unit potential. Um, you know, if you want a lot of hours, it's your primary job. Retail is the place to be, and because you know your customers are going to you, and then you can try to advertise to get more customers coming to you. Typical franchise support. The franchisor. This is what you're looking for: pre-opening assistance, initial training, very important. There's no franchisor that will not train you, and I'll tell you why. Because of the fact they justify their franchise fee, which you have to sort through with your franchise consultant, and by you asking the questions of franchisees, saying, "Did you get the training they promised you?" When you're talking to franchisees, very important. You have to ask the right questions so they answer. Did you get the questions that they promised you, the service that you promised? Was the training good? A franchisor will always give you training because they're trying to justify their franchise fee. Your job before you write the check for the franchise fee is to talk to franchisees and investigate and even ask the franchisor themselves, investigate how intense their training is. Tell them they're not going to give you the keys to the locker room. They're not going to say, well, here's my operations manual, my training manual. Maybe you can say, can you send me a scan of the table of contents of your training thing? And how many pages ask them how many pages is your ops book? And how long is the training in classroom? And on and on. Ask the questions because everybody's going to they're going to justify their franchise fee by saying training, but your job is to justify that the training is worth something. And validating the product through the franchisees is the best. Okay, so pre-opening assistance, initial training, site selection, manuals, and newsletters. So you want to check all that out. Ask the franchisee, are you getting what you said they told you were going to get? Okay, we're getting there, guys. Hold on, we're getting close to the end here. Just a couple more slides. Typical franchisor support. I see a hand up there. Aki. Okay. Yes, Aki.
Hey, Frank. I sent an email and I don't see the PowerPoint screen. I only can see right now is a quick pause still.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see. Hide results. Okay, how's that?
Yeah, still. Oh,
It says typical
it get
franchisor
back, but the
support.
still. Yeah, it get back, but the quick pause the screen. I don't see a PowerPoint screen yet.
Oh. Anybody else have that same thing? Because I did shut the results off, but wow. Let me see on another computer here. I'm sorry. 1 second, everybody. I don't. Well, let me. Wait a minute. I know what that's got to be. Then
Okay.
you see it. You see it now.
Uh,
Wait a minute. Okay, you should see it now.
is this only me or oh yes, I got the
You got it now.
yeah, I got it.
Okay, thank you, Aki. I
No
guess
problem. Thank you.
everybody else must have it too. Yeah, because I got another computer here running. I can see it. So I guess when I didn't, I put that poll on my other monitor, and then I didn't look back at it. I had to shut that poll, and I had to start this other monitor again. I have two monitors going, so I had it on the other one. Apologize,
Okay.
guys, if you attend another uh, um, franchise seminar of mine or any seminar. I will have that worked out. I definitely will have the chat thing. Thank you, Aki. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, so. Um, Typical franchise support network of peer advisors, like we talked about, co-ops, and they have annual franchise meetings and research and development, which it's hard to do when you're running your business to stop and do the research and development. So you're paying for that with your royalties, and you're paying for that with your franchise fee. But if it's a good franchisor, it's definitely worth it. And sometimes they get the benefit of franchisees, like everybody talks about. Breakfast line of McDonald's was started by either a Pittsburgh, a Philadelphia franchisee, and the Big Mac was one of the Pennsylvania, was either Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. Both of those things came from the franchisees telling the franchisor. So sometimes they gain the other way too. But you gain by that synergy because you had all the franchisees working together. You got the same synergy. So those are some of the big benefits of franchising. Okay. Collective buying power. And like I said, you got to check on that and make sure it's collective. Make sure if there's any rebates, you guys are getting them all back to the franchisees or to the marketing fund. So you got to pick a franchisor where they give you, or representatives that are voted in, the power to look at the buying power, okay, to look at the product purchases. They talk about regional meetings. Regional meetings are very good. Like I'll give you the Cold Stone scenario because you see national conventions are next. We had I didn't like the collective buying power because there is some litigation against Cold Stone now from our association that they were keeping too much of the rebates. Regional meetings were definitely stuff that still goes on. In other words, where we had co-op meetings in San Diego, to use that scenario, then they would have a regional meeting for uh, LA area and south, and maybe all the way out to Riverside, where and on the East Coast they would have like New Jersey or New York, and then they'd have metropolitan area, and then they'll have all New England. So um, national conventions are very important to get the camaraderie going, people together, breakout sessions, learning from each other. But you gotta know what you're doing when you go there, because I was a product of it. They're pep rallies. I was old enough to know it, but they're trying to sell more franchise agreements because they want to grow as a franchise agreements, and then they get you all excited that you want to control your area, so you want to buy more. So know you're going to a pep rally, but try to get out something that's beneficial to you to run your operations better, or to meet contacts where you can get future questions answered. But don't get caught up in the pep rally if you don't want to spend a lot of money. And if you want to spend a lot of money, don't worry about it. Do it. Franchises definitely have the money. They have the places for you to spend money. So, okay. Let's go down to, okay, the research. I have 11 more slides, guys. Just hang in there. The research, and I'll stay as long as people have questions. So as long as you have questions, I'll be here. And we'll open up the voices. You can just then talk, and it'll be easy. We don't have to worry about how we're going to write. So right at the end, after 11 slides, we'll open up all the voices. The research method. An investigation will change your life. This is step 5 and help you realize your dreams. Conduct comprehensive franchise investigations. Initial package, DFDD. Visit call existing franchisees, which we call the validation process. Very important to, if you can, travel to local ones. It's great to see and touch the business and meet the franchisees face to face, or do it all by phone, but don't call one or two, call 10 if you have to. That's why you need somebody like myself to narrow down the universe of 3,000 franchises down to three or so you can fully investigate three, and those three should meet your requirements. If you don't like your franchise consultant telling you what those three are, and you still feel they don't meet your requirements, ask them for more. But you're never going to do anything when it's thousands, so you got to narrow it down. Visit call existing franchisees, review systems and documentation, discovery day. Now, this review systems and documentation, by law, you get the franchise disclosure document, and you can't talk to the franchisor. I say 14, sometimes I think 10. I think it's 10 business days or maybe 2 calendar weeks. You cannot ask them any questions on the FDD. You got you can't sign it, is what the rule is. You could ask all the questions you want, but you can't sign it, and they're not allowed to let you sign it. So if you went to a franchise meeting today and they put a franchise disclosure document, I don't think you're ever going to see that because it's so against the law. It's amazing. The Federal Trade Commission controls this. You got to have a 14-day quiet period when you look at an FDD before you can sign it. So go to a lawyer if you want, call the franchisees, call your friends to look at it, tell the franchisor you want a month to look at it, but definitely review the systems and documentations. Then there's a discovery day franchise staff. That's where you like it, you think you want to sign it, do the last following step. Fly to where the headquarters are. They have discovery days every month. New franchises, brand new ones, might have them every week. So go to the discovery day and you meet all the officers from the president and the CEO on down. You see probably a lab they have set up like a store, or they drive you to a local store. They're always going to have a store close, if it's a retail thing, close to the headquarters. Or they're going to bring in franchisees to tell you their experience straight up. Excuse me. So those are definitely the beginning steps. Questions to ask yourself. Are you willing to follow a system? We talked about that before. Do you like dealing with people? Very important. You're going to have employees. You're going to have customers. Do you have the financial resources? And you're going to have to put sometimes money aside. So if times go bad, you're going to have cash flow. Every business has some kind of seasonality. You might get a bad recessionary economy, and then it might come out of it, and then you might have a great economy. Your customers are coming like crazy. That news is good too, but that means you might need more staff, more equipment, which is more capital. So I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm going to just get a throat lozenge. I don't know why my throat's bothering me. Do you believe in the product or the service? Very important. So, okay, evaluate the facts. This is step 6. Get all the questions answered. Conquer your fear. Make a decision. That conquer your fear. When I sit down and I do like a 4-hour consult with somebody over a couple meetings, I not only try to get the motivation factor right away, why they want to go in business now, I also try to tell them that there's going to be fear and anxiety anytime you buy a business, never mind like a house or any kind of big step in your life, you get married. So when I hear the fear, and I'm going to hear it in other things, I just got to have my uncle check it on. And, oh, my uncle's in Europe right now. What does your uncle in Europe have to do? Well, I just want the stock market hit 1,450. If it ever hits 15,000, man, I'm ready to go. I really want to know that stock market's there. That's a way that every customer is telling you about fear and anxiety. I'm going to tell you up front, if I hear fear and anxiety, would you mind if I say with all due respect, I hear fear and anxiety? And I'm going to remind you, I might tell you trivial stories like, remember the first day you went to school? Oh, you went in there and all these new faces and big blackboards if you're older like myself, and those big letters up on the wall that you can't even read from A to Z. You don't know what they look like. And that was the worst day of your life. Or was it? Now look at it now. It's a long time ago. Or I haven't one that works all the time. every one of us faced jumping off that diving board the first time. Did you have to teach yourself and do a bunch of belly flops, or did your father teach you or your mother? How did you learn? But once you did it, you said, well, that's pretty easy. Same thing with business. You have to get people's fear and anxiety out of the way. So, how can you take advantage of the free service offered by FranChoice and myself? That's a good question. I don't see any hands going up. Well, we're going to have an open forum here in a minute. So, we're very close to that. So, okay. Of course, I'm going to ask you why FranChoice. And what I'm going to say is we're a free service, no hidden cost, help with narrowing the search, save you time and effort. How do you get from those 3,000 down to 3, like I said? How do you get down to 10? Often never thought of opportunities. You might walk all the strip malls in San Diego or New York or anywhere and say, well, I'll write down all the names of the franchises. Well, those franchises aren't in every city, and some of them are so new, but they really populated one state and they're ready to move to other states. So there's a lot of things. I like the last one. Offers never thought of opportunities. I've been in franchise business 15 years before I start working with other franchisors, and I'm amazed at some I got to work with that I've never seen before. I never thought of the idea. Let me run a quick poll and not have it screw up again. We'll go back to the first one. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I don't know why that poll's just not coming up. Okay. All right. This is the share results. Hide the results. I guess I'll do a new poll. Okay. Just at the end of it, now that we got all our information. Okay. All right. Okay. I am going to give up on polls. Sorry about that. So let's go back to this and okay. All right. Does everybody see my screen like normal? Okay. I'm going to open up everybody. Okay. You guys are open up now because I'm having problems with the poll and I'm not going to go through that. Everybody's got their screen and okay. All right. Do I have any questions right now? Do I have any questions or I can't hear it? Does somebody have to ask a question? All right. Let me just finish the last 4 slides here. I just wanted to ask on the poll if your knowledge of franchising is any better, or you guys started out as a pretty successful group with 67% saying you had a lot of knowledge, but nobody's answering?
I've got a question, Frank.
Okay, who is this? Who's speaking?
Joe Vecchio.
Okay. Yes, Joe.
Well, you say it's a free service, but I mean, you're not doing this for no compensation whatsoever. So I'm just wondering how you get compensated. I wouldn't expect you to do it for free.
Oh, okay, okay. That was. I guess I didn't put that. I guess I didn't say that yet. Okay, good question. The way I get compensated is by the franchisor. So I'm essentially a matchmaker between the candidate and the franchisor. So when I narrow it down to 3 franchisors, I know I'll get paid by the franchisor if you buy into one of those systems.
Okay, thank you.
So then you guys are essentially, my candidates are essentially investing in, they're investing their time. So would I ask anybody, did anybody get more knowledge out of this? Because that's what our consulting would be about. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Some feedback too now, I think.
You've been very, very helpful.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, there's somebody on a speakerphone. That's why we're getting feedback, probably. Okay, I'm gonna hang up the names, and then what you can do is.
Also, I don't know how to raise my hand. I'm on an iPad.
Oh, I'm gonna shut people's thing off to get rid of the echo, so we could raise your hand again if you have a question. I'm muting everybody again. Okay, somebody seems to still have an echo. Okay, we only have a couple more slides. What I wanted to do is get to the end here on what can I do for you? How can I help you find the right franchise? We're going to do a poll again, but we had some problems with that. I just wanted to know. A couple of you answered that you gained more knowledge, and that's what we wanted to gain by this. Now, here's what I would like you to do. What are you waiting for? I will stay around for an hour or so, or as long as you stay. If anybody has questions, and I don't see people putting up questions throughout the period, so I don't think you're gonna have many. But this link here, I'm gonna take this link and put it in the chat box. Let me close these polls here. And in the chat box, okay, do you see that link in the chat box? So what I'm going to do for the first 20 people who go there, I will send you my book, because I will see your email address, and I will it'll also ask you some address information. If not, I will go from your email address and ask you that. The first 20 people that go there, I will give them a book. The only free service I can give you for getting you motivated to use my free service, I can't give you something free for free. We're giving you free service. I told you my time with you, all you have to do is invest the time, because my service is paid by the franchisor, like Joe Vecchio asked. But if you go to this link and sign up, and you have to, they also ask you for some financial information. Just like when you're dealing with a financial planner, you have to have financial information to start talking to a franchisor down the road, or for me to do my consulting process. It's definitely going to our secure server. Nobody will see it except you who wrote it and myself. There is also a calculator on there where you can calculate that. Let me show you the. Let me go to this website just so I can show you where you're going. If you jump off that link, you will go to the franchise website in my area here. Does everybody see that? If somebody just starts raising their hands, I know you see it. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, George. So I need your name, last name, address. Well, it only asks for email address. So, and the net worth. But I want to show you that the net worth goes in ranges, and it also shows you the liquid capital. But I want to show you that there's a calculate network calculator on there, so you can pull out all this information and come up with a net worth. Or if you know an approximate, like most people know before they even start, you can just fill in the ranges on the net worth and the liquid capital. But so I just wanted to see that link is in the chat box. And it's also on the screen, and I'm going to be sending a copy. This is recorded. I'll send a copy to everybody of this of the PowerPoint we just went through. But definitely go to this link. The first 20 people, I will send the book, and when you give me all the information, the financial information as well, and then I also will be getting in touch with you to see what your address is so we can start a consulting process. Again, if you want to do that, it's free to you. It's just a matter of your time. And if you think you learned a lot today, you can definitely learn a lot more by doing that process also. Okay. And we get back to the last slide. What are you waiting for? First 20 people to fill out a registration will receive my buying a franchise book free. You have to fill out the form, including your net worth and liquid capital. There is a net worth calculator to help you. And in the chat box, you should see the link, but I'll put it up on the screen here again. All right, I'm going to try to open up any of the questions again. And see if you have any questions, since the chat box isn't working. You should have a live mic, as long as we don't get any feedback again. Okay. Okay, George, you have a question, George Thomas? And how you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay, so here's one of the things I've been thinking about is that if I want to do an early retirement, can you help me out with finding a franchise? Say right now I'm living in Kansas and I want to retire in Jersey. Can you help me find a franchise that would give me enough money to retire early and, still not have to be working, a tremendous amount of hours and still.
Oh, yes. And I could, I have access to the whole country, so I can sell it to you in New Jersey or in Kansas City. And remember, I also said that we can also fund it from your retirement accounts too. So,
okay. All right.
But I know if you're close to 59 and a half, then you don't even have a problem taking money out of some retirement accounts anyway.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes, because I think that would be a great idea. I'm ready. I'm ready to get out.
Yeah, I know you are. And it's just so everybody knows, this is my cousin George in Kansas City. Well, I don't see that often, so it's a pleasure hearing from you, George.
Yes.
So, no, definitely you can do that, and fill out the survey thing, and we'll talk from there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else with a question? Okay, somebody's got a speakerphone on. That's why that happens. But okay, I think everybody's enabled. Any other questions?
Just a technical one, Frank. I'm on an iPad too, and I do not know how to raise my hand with the screen. So.
Okay, it doesn't matter. You're unmuted, so talk. So.
Right. I mean, I'm just curious prior to this, but.
So that's something I should ask the people for the next time from GoToMeeting.
Webinar.
Is there some kind of restriction on the iPad?
Yeah. Other than that, it was great.
Okay, well, thank you. And by the way, Joe invited me to talk on his show at KFMB Sunday, so I appreciate that, Joe.
Yes, that will be at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 7 to 8, and you can hear it stream live if you like on 760kfmb.com.
Great advertisement, Joe.
Or Monday, it'll be on iWhyMoney.com, commercial free forever and ever. We'll have you up there on the podcast.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, that's the only problem when you open up everybody unmuted. You always get some noise in the background. I see a friend in there I haven't seen in a long time. Ed, do you have any questions? Nope. Aki, you have any questions?
I'm fine, thank you, Frank. That's great.
All right, well, and by the way, the last thing I didn't put on the screen here, anybody listening, definitely I pay referral fees if you recommend somebody to me and they sign a franchise document. So that's one of the last things I want to put out. Okay, thank you, everybody. If there's no other questions, I'm going to terminate it, and I will be sending out also in a couple days the as quick as GoToMeeting gives me the file, I will be sending out the replay.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Frank.
All right. Bye now.
Thanks, Frank.
Good night.